Welcome to the Apex Magazine live Q&A with our editors. Tonight I'm joined by Jason Sizemore, Lesley Conner, Maurice Broaddus, and Shana DuBois to answer your questions about everything from what happens behind the scenes at Apex to how do I get you to buy my story? Didn't get your questions for the Q&A submitted on time? No problem. There's a chat box to the right. Type in your question, and thanks for your patience. Before we get started, have you seen the Apex Magazine Kickstarter for 2021? That's right, we blasted through our first funding goal in less than 6 hours, and as you watch this live stream tonight, we'll be inching ever closer to being fully funded for 2021, along with some amazing stretch goals. To learn more, head over to apex-magazine.com or our Twitter at ApexMag. And now let's have our panelists introduce themselves. And I will start with Shana.
Hi, my name is Shana DuBois. I am the newest addition to Apex, focusing on nonfiction editorial. And you can find me on Twitter at Shana_DuBois, DUBOIS. And yeah, I'm just happy to be here. Excited that we got it going.
And Maurice, let's go to you next.
So my name is Maurice Broaddus. I'm a science fiction and fantasy author and a horror writer, and basically writer of anything where I'm getting paid. My Apex duties include, I'm not too sure, what's even my title? I'm assistant? I don't know. I'm something with Apex. I loom large over all things Apex, so my tendrils are into a bit of everything. So enjoy that image.
Lesley, let's jump over to you.
Hi, I'm Lesley Conner. I am Apex Magazine's managing editor. You can find me on Twitter at Lesley Conner. I have been the managing editor for Apex Magazine since I think October of 2014. And before that, I have been working for the book side for a few years before that. So it's been a while.
And our editor-in-chief, Jason Sizemore.
Hello, I am Jason, the editor-in-chief, the guy that has put together the shambles of a live stream. So my apologies to all our followers and viewers, but I think we're on track. I'm sure the team will have some vicious trolling for me after the stream is over, so the punishment will be swift and cruel. Thank you guys for joining us, and we look forward to answering all your questions about the magazine, why we do what we do, and how you can be a part of it.
And I am Andrea Johnson. I'm thrilled to get to moderate this panel. I am the author interviewer at Apex Magazine, and you can follow me on Twitter at redhead5318. We have some questions that came in over the last couple of days, so I'm going to start with those. If you've got additional questions, you can chat them to us, you can tweet them to us, and we'll get to as many as we can in the next hour. Our first question is from Rick Lohmeyer to Jason. Rick says, I love short fiction and subscribed to Apex before it went on hiatus and was happy to contribute to your recent Kickstarter. Nevertheless, I worry about the long-term health of online publications who make their stories available for free. I'm particularly concerned given how many news magazines and papers have put up paywalls recently. Do you share my concern? What long-term plans do you have to address this issue?
Yeah, that is always an ongoing concern. I would ask that you take heart, though. Prior to our hiatus, we were profitable, not, where Lesley and I was rolling around in money all the time. But we ran in the black, and We did that through a combination of revenue streams, most notably through online subscriptions. We had a little over 1,400 subscribers when we went on hiatus. Now, can we build that many back? Because that was over several years. We'll see. The great thing about the Kickstarter being funded is it's this huge safety net that we're not used to having. So now we can focus on marketing, selling subscriptions, picking up corporate advertising, a little SEO work on the website to increase traffic. A lot of these things are already underway, and I see nothing but big success on the horizon in terms of staying in business. Having the content online for free I think that's a requirement these days for entertainment-based publications. Since being entertained is an at-will kind of proposition, asking people to pay when there's so much other content out there. I mean, if I wanted to throw a $5 a month paywall on the Apex Magazine website, well, everyone can just say, heck with him, I'll go Clark's World and Lightspeed and Strange Horizons. So you have to put your trust in the people that believe in your product, like your readers, and by creating high quality content, they will reciprocate their appreciation by opening up and digging into their wallets or whatever and give you $1 or $2 to help you keep going. And yeah, that may seem like a bit of a house of cards strategy, but it's the one that has evolved from the ebook and internet revolution, so to speak, from the early 2000s, and I don't see that changing anytime soon.
It's tough to find that balance between what do you ask people to open up their wallets for and what do you give them for free first. So it's a tough balance.
Yeah, it was a tough decision doing a Kickstarter because we do want to run exclusively on a subscriber system, a recurring subscriber system. But there's just too many costs. So to offset that, we have had a whole bunch of milestone goals where we give away even more free content to all the backers as our way of saying thank you for helping us bring this back to life.
Mm-hmm.
I'm excited for all of those milestones and all of those stretch goals. Let's see, our next question we've got is from Katie to Lesley. And Katie says, I noticed on the submission grinder that you guys are responding to tons of submissions, and they do not seem to be in any particular order. What is your submission reading process?
The submission reading process starts with our first readers. We are lucky enough that we had several first readers come back from after the hiatus, and we've added a couple of new ones. So right now we have, I believe, 9 first readers, and they are our first stop. After a story comes, they go to our first readers. Our first readers go in and try to read the oldest stories first. Now, they might jump a story or two ahead, say they have like only a short amount of time, and so they're looking for a shorter story. But for the most part, they read the oldest stories first. They then will either recommend a story or not recommend the story. And if it's not recommended, all the stories then jump up to me. And if it's not recommended, I send out your standard letter passing on the story and hoping that people will send something else. After that, it goes into my pile. And right now I can tell you on Friday, I already had like 55 stories waiting for me. And I am reading as quickly as I can. So I read those stories, the oldest stories first. And I go through them again. And I'm going from everything that's bumped up to me is a good quality story. Our first readers are looking for good stories that they feel could be published in Apex Magazine. I'm trying to narrow that down a bit, just so that we don't completely overwhelm Jason. Like, he can't read everything that comes through. So I narrow down what's bumped up to me, and I send out another round of rejections, and then what is left gets bumped up to Jason, and then it gets left in his queue. I'm not sure how many are in his queue right now, but a handful are waiting on him.
Not all 55 that you had?
Not all 55.
And
can't send everything up. Even when I really like a story, sometimes I have to really think, is this an Apex story? Because there's a lot of great stories out there that we're just not the right home for.
That leads perfectly into the next question that I have, which is from Benjamin to you, Lesley. And Benjamin asks, going forward with the relaunch of the magazine, what kinds of stories will make it to the top 1% of the slush pile?
You always hear about beginnings, about how important beginnings are. I would remind writers that endings are just as important, because basically any story that has made it up to my pile, it has a solid beginning. It has a really solid beginning. It wouldn't have made it up that far if it didn't. There have been a couple of stories so far that I have read all the way through, and I love it, and I am ready. I'm ready to send it up to Jason and then to text him and be like, oh my God, you got to read this story right now. And then the ending falls flat, or it feels too easy. Like if you've had your character struggling, and then the solution just sort of falls into their lap. To me, that's super disappointing. And I'm like if you'd just given it this much more. So don't forget the ending of your story. Don't just polish the beginning and then hope that'll carry you all the way through, because you've also got to nail that ending. So that would be my first thing that I'd say. And also, stories that make me feel some sort of emotion are way more likely to get bumped up. Now, I'm not saying it has to be one particular, like I'm not saying it has to make me cry or it has to make me laugh. I need to feel something, because then I want to fight for it. Like then I want to be in Jason's ear going, hey, I just sent this story up to you and it is amazing. So just try to emotionally have an emotional base in your story.
All right. Before we jump into the next question, which is also about story submissions, if anybody is having any trouble with the chat box on YouTube, feel free to type your question into the comments below the live video, and we'll get to your question that way. You can also tweet us questions, or hire a plane and skywrite them in the sky, and we'll get them that way. This next question was sent for Maurice to answer, but I think really any of our panelists will have interesting responses to this question. Eric says, I'm backing Apex Magazine because of the Hugo nods and awards the short stories have received. I'm currently subscribed to Clark's World and Lightspeed, but I've never subscribed to Apex before this Kickstarter. In your opinions, what makes your story selection uniquely Apex Magazine material?
When I think of an Apex story, especially the ones that appeal to me most, I think of three things. It's like the author's voice. Let's see, the ideas that are inherent in the story, and then do they have something to say? I mean, for me, that's what defines an Apex story. Is when I think of some of my favorite stories that have been published in Apex, it's always with an author whose voice is so strong. I look at it this way: Can I pick your story out of the lineup without even knowing who the byline is? Because I mean, that for me is a definitive. All right, you have a strong authorial voice, and that's always been a big thing for me. And so when the strength of their voice. The ideas that are inherent in their story. What I mean by that is, not just are they presenting something new, because that's kind of hard to do in this day and age. By this time in the history of and the canon of stories, it's not going to be a lot new there. But can you present an interesting idea? Can you make me think a little differently? Can you impact my heart and my head? That's what I want to be challenged by your ideas. And then frankly, that should all that ties together to, do you have something to say? Does the story say something? So that's the way it works for me.
I like it. Anyone else have any input on what makes Apex stories uniquely Apex stories?
I like to hear Shana's. She's the new kid on the block.
I'm nonfiction though. So I think for me, just not as a fiction editor, but just as a reader of short fiction, there's always just been something special and inherently different about Apex. And I subscribe to all of them. Honestly, I still hold my subscriptions I back Strange Horizons, I do Clark's World and Nightmare and the whole gamut. Uncanny, Beneath Ceaseless Skies. I like to try and throw them all out there name-wise. But there's just Apex for me there's the history of, the 10-year run, and just there's something familiar and familial almost about some of the stories and the way that they connect for me. And like Maurice said, you can pick them out of a lineup. You can see them and you can read it and you can say, I bet that's an Apex story. And I'm honored to be a part of, such a team that has such a strong kind of foundation within storytelling.
And Shana, since you came on board as our nonfiction editor, we have some questions especially for you about publishing nonfiction in the magazine. Sarah asks, as the new nonfiction editor, what sorts of topics are you looking to publish? Will you lean more into social issues or stick to more fact-based content?
So I love nonfiction. I love essays. I don't think it needs to be all one or the other. I think that there's room for both. It's really, not to steal Maurice's comment about stories, but like, what do you have to say? And I really want to have more of the global conversations. When I was in the Marine Corps, I was stationed overseas and I deployed overseas. And I really got to see a lot of other cultures firsthand. And I read a lot of works in translation, fiction-wise. But I really want to hear voices and hear about what people have to say. In some ways, it's genre related, but even internationally, genre is treated differently than we treat it here in the U.S. And So essays that are going to come from writers with a different background, I will find fascinating because they're going to have a completely different take than things that, I might write about, or that, I might have read the same story and it impacts me in a completely different way because I bring a different background to it. So I really do want to have a little bit of everything, because if I look at fact-based, then it's, well, what is fact-based to somebody else who lives somewhere else and experienced a completely different thing? It's going to be very different. So I'm looking for everything, honestly. I really want to have those conversations and make the essays more of a global conversation as a whole.
I'm all for a global conversation. We have another question for you, Shana. This person writes in, if I want to write nonfiction for Apex magazine, how should I go about making that happen?
You can pitch me however you can find me. You can send me a DM on Twitter. You can send me an email. I will share my email online because it's a mouthful, ShanaLeeDuBois@gmail.com. And so that might be ShanaLeeDuBois@gmail.com. But yeah, just if you have an idea, let me know. I want to hear about it.
Excellent. And a couple of general questions for any of our panelists who would like to jump in. What are some of your favorite Apex magazine stories?
That's right. You have to pick one.
Or a handful. You can pick a handful. It's okay.
Let's see. So many stories written by Maurice Broaddus.
You can't pick your own.
All right, fine. All right, I got three. I got three. N-Coin by Tobias Buckell. Say She Toy from Cheshire Burke. And okay, it was all right, help me out. Sinner, Baker, Fabulous, Priest, Red Mask, Black Mask, Gentleman, Beast by U.G. Foster.
It seems like a lot of our best stories have these incredibly long titles.
Yeah, I'm looking up a title right now so I don't mess it up. I was going to say She Gave Her Heart and He Took Her Marrow by Sam Fleming. I still think about that story. I mean, we published it, was issue 79, so that's been a while ago. And I still think about that story on a pretty regular basis. It's an amazing story. I just really enjoy it. And then Jason and I were recently on a podcast, Staring into the Abyss, and we talked about a couple of stories that we've published by Russell Nichols, Blood on Beacon Hill and Curse of a Savior.
Curse like a Savior.
Curse like a Savior. See, I knew I was going to mess one up. And those are two stories that I think about a lot that are really great. And I think that more people should read them right now.
After the stream.
I was going to say, stop watching now. Go read.
My favorites are the one, I know the moderator shouldn't jump in, but my favorites are the ones that make me cry. Because I get to read them before they go to publication, so I can send the author interview questions. So I'm, crying while I'm trying to write up these interview questions. And then the interview questions come back to me with answers. And then I read through the answers and I write an intro. So I have to read the story again. So then I'm crying while I'm writing the intro. So if you're still cry, congratulations.
The dog story.
Oh, don't even. No. Oh my God, don't
with
even.
Your dog. That one nearly got me.
Don't break our moderator.
Don't break the moderator.
That's my goal, though, is to make Jason cry with a submission. If the story makes me cry and I send it to him, I'm immediately, it could be 5:30 in the morning, I'm texting him, you got to go read the story right now. And then I'm just like staring at my phone because he knows I'm trying to make him cry.
You almost did it with the Adam Shannon story with the dog. I'm sensitive to animals.
Take note, authors who are subbing us stories. Your goal is to make Lesley, Jason, and all the rest of us cry. Shall we talk about stories that made us cry a little bit more, or are we ready to change gears with the next question?
Yeah, we can
Oh,
go to
well.
All right,
we're
done.
shared our favorites.
We're done crying? Or we have more favorites to share?
One that is not a cry story, but that I also think is really great is Field Biology of the Wee Fairies by Naomi Kreitzer. That story, like, I read that story and I was like, that's the story that 11-year-old Lesley needed. Like, I love that story.
I'll throw a couple out there, and I'm not doing this just to assuage Maurice's ego, but from issue number 2, Pimp My Airship. One of my all-time favorites, and it's also one of the very first ones that came out. And so I launched a new feature on the website, from the vaults, and that story was the first one I wanted to feature. I think it really, if you read that, it encapsulates a lot of what we're trying to do with Apex Magazine. Break new ground, have edgier material, stuff that doesn't knock you over the head with a social statement, but smartly interweaves it with the plot. And in the same breath, I would also like to mention Lazarus and the Amazing Kid Phoenix. That's one of my all-time favorites by Jennifer Giesbrecht. And it's another one of these, what I consider kind of a groundbreaking work. It's kind of like a mixture of comic book storytelling and horror, mostly. Sorry, I had a pop-up on the screen, threw me off. And it's got some of the most evocative imagery that I've had the opportunity to read for the magazine. So if you want to see what Apex Magazine is about as a reader and as a writer, Pimp My Airship and Lazarus and the Amazing Kid Phoenix are two that you can't go wrong.
Fantastic. We've got a question from KJ Mulder, who asks, what are some of the biggest challenges in story selection?
Getting 1,200 submissions in 3 weeks after you open.
Yeah.
Just handling the volume is often one of the biggest challenges. Even though I don't deal with the submissions pool very often, unless we get far behind, then I will jump in and help out. I do read an awful lot, and Lesley, I don't know how she does it. She probably burns through 150 stories a month at least, and also manages the slush pile. There's also other issues from an editorial standpoint. You want an issue to make sense collectively. So you don't want two stories running that butt heads with one another, either in tone or theme. Also, you don't want to repeatedly buy content from the same writer over and over. I have fallen into that trap sometimes because when you're dealing with a pro level writer, they can zero in on you and know exactly the kind of story to write that will cause you to jump and throw money at them and say, yes, I want to publish it. I had that problem with Maurice, so I had to drag him into the editorial team. Livy Tidhar's another one, Rich Larson, Cassandra Call. I mean, any of these people could throw something on the back of a napkin and it would probably be awesome. And so you got to also be mindful to mix up the voices that you're publishing, or else your content will start feeling stale, even if it is interesting and well written.
I think that kind of goes sort of with what I was going to say, is that it's hard, and I think that sometimes, especially newer writers, don't seem to understand. Just because we send a rejection doesn't mean that a story isn't good or quality or even pro level. I mean, because it could just not be what we need right at that time. There have been stories that I've had to send a rejection letter to that. I mean, it actually like hurts to send because I loved the story so much. And I'm like, please, please, please just send this somewhere else because it will be published. It's just not a good fit for us right now. Especially if I know what we already have waiting to be published, or, you know, so, and I think that sometimes, because I get a lot of emails from writers asking for feedback or asking what they did wrong or something. And it's hard for me to explain to them that getting a rejection doesn't necessarily mean there's something wrong. Now, if you get several rejections on the same story, then maybe go back and give it another, edit. But getting one doesn't mean it necessarily there's something wrong. It could just simply mean it's not good right for us right now. And that's, I feel, especially because I get so many emails, it's hard to make writers sometimes understand that, especially new writers, that like, please keep going. Don't take my one rejection personally. Keep sending it out there.
Fantastic. We've gotten some questions in the chat from Christian. He asks, what sort of role does short horror play in Apex? Let's talk about the scary stuff.
Yeah. Much of the flash that we've published over the years would, I think, fall under the horror umbrella. I think the only story that we've had up for a Stoker Award recently was like a little 800-word piece about a musical conductor torturing a little fairy to make her sing in different notes and pitches. It's it sounds awful, and it was kind of awful, but it was also written beautifully, and you just have to read it.
That sounds terrible.
Now, what role does it play? I wouldn't say that horror shorts are our primary focus, but as opposed to some other zines out there, just because something is horror doesn't mean that we're going to chuck a rejection notice at you for it.
All right. Christian had a second question. He asked, how often do you approach authors who have already been published in Apex magazine for new stories from them?
Not that often. We almost all of our stories come from the slush pile. The only time we really solicit is if we're doing, like, we solicited a few stories for January for the relaunch, and like if we're doing like a special issue, like a themed issue, or if it's like an issue, like I forget what year it was in January, we had like a special double issue. A couple of those stories were solicited, but most of our fiction comes directly from the slush pile.
All right.
Yeah, even when we have guest editors, like Maurice guest edited one of our last issues before we went on hiatus, actually 120. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was a mixture of slush and solicited works.
Yeah.
And when Cherie guest edited, it was also the same. When Amy Sturgis guest edited our Indigenous Fantasies issue, she took from the slush as well as solicit. So I think grabbing content from the slush is very important for any publication that wants to act like it is being indicative of many voices and having a diverse selection of stories and type of stories.
All right. Then another question in our hopper. This one's for Maurice. You guest edited Apex Magazine issue 120, which focused on Afrofuturism. Can you tell us a little bit more about how you put that issue together and what your editorial voice was?
So that one started off, that one was a theme issue, and I had a particular vision in my head of what I was trying to do with the issue. So then it was a matter of finding the stories that matched the ideas that were going on in my head. So good luck, writers, as you're trying to get in tune with my head. But a lot of the time, a lot of it boiled down to the things that I look for in general in stories. You know, is there a measure of social critique? Is there are there new ideas being presented? Is it really personal? 'Cause I love stories that I can tell cut close to the bone for the author. You know, that those sort of things ring true for me, and it really appeals to me. I mentioned the story Ncoin, for example. That was from that issue, and I love that story so much, Tobias Buckell's story, and a lot of that boiled down to this clever conceit that he executed brilliantly. So, and as well as a measure of social critique. So, I mean, those are things I typically look for in any given issue. But especially with that Afrofuturism issue. I guess in general, though, I should not underestimate my love of talking animal stories. So I'll just throw that out there. Now enjoy that, slush pile.
Thanks, Maurice.
Yeah, just forward all talking animal stories to Maurice. All hundreds of them.
Well, our slush team will read them all.
There we go. Because they're troopers.
Yeah.
Yes, they are.
Our next question is for Shana. As a newer member of our editorial team, what are you expecting from this experience? Every new editorial voice allows the magazine to grow in a different direction. What direction do you want to go in?
Expectations, just really to have fun and find new voices and find, you know, the not the stories, but the words and the voices that are maybe less often making it into publications. I really want to find people, like some that have never had a published essay before, you know, or things like that. I just, having that opportunity to have and participate in a conversation is crucial. And that's how I look at a lot of essays, are how are they commenting on something that they went through, or that their community is going through, or that society's going through. You know, we're a global society now, and to focus or to hone in on just one area it does a disservice to the conversations and the community that we have as a whole. And from a literature perspective and a genre perspective, it really is international, and I hope to hone in on that.
Excellent, excellent. I've got a question for Lesley. You've been with the magazine a long time. How has your role evolved over the years?
I started out on the book side of things, working with like social media and marketing, like finding reviewers for our upcoming titles. And it was just a few hours a week. And then I just sort of kept, like, Jason would be like, hey, I need somebody who can do this. And I'd be like, I can do that. Like, and so it just sort of slowly evolved and slowly crept up until now. Not saying that I can do everything, but most things I'm not shy to be like, yeah, sure, I can handle that. Or if, you know, anything that Jason needs done, I'm at least willing to give it a shot. I might mess it up, but I'll try. So yeah, it evolved slowly. It wasn't all like overnight I was the managing editor, but slowly here and there, learning new skills, trying on new hats.
Well, you ran things basically entirely for 2 or 3 months while I was having my surgeries back.
Yeah, let's not do that again.
Yeah, well, I don't want to do that again.
Yeah, let's not.
Yeah, we're not doing that again.
No.
Question for Jason. Last year, Apex Magazine celebrated its 10th anniversary. How is the magazine different now than it was 10 years ago? And how have you as an editor and a publisher grown in the last 10 years?
Oh my gosh. I look back at my stuff from 10 years ago and I just shake my head. I'm like, what an immature know-it-all. It's definitely been an incredible learning experience, a fun ride. Something that when I started it, you know, I always tell people it was an early midlife crisis, and that I was seeking a form of creative expression. And it has been that and so much more for me. It's odd. Forever and ever, I always thought, you know, I'll never find my passion for what I like to do. I was a software developer for 20 years, even though my technical skills, as evidenced by tonight's live stream, can be lacking. My heart wasn't in that, and I always was looking for something more, and it really just clicked. Especially after about the second issue of doing the print digest around 2006. I was like, man, I really love doing this. Got a lot to learn, but so I like to think, you know, that I've grown, and professionally, I've become a lot stronger in terms of, acquisitions and copy editing, all, the whole spectrum.
All right, we're just past 9 o'clock, but do we have time for a couple more, 1 or 2 more questions, or should we wrap up?
Well, it took us 15 minutes to get going.
Right.
So let's go a little longer.
If anyone needs to go, though, go ahead, so that way we can talk about you.
That's why I'm sticking around.
All right, I do have a couple more questions in the hopper. Let's see. A big difference going forward is that 2021 will feature only 6 issues instead of the traditional 12. Why did you make the change to only 6 issues per year?
Because the only thing that I really did not enjoy when doing the zine prior to the hiatus was the monthly grind. And it felt like with a month, the turnaround time just was too short in order to focus on the end product. So oftentimes there were aspects of issues that I was not happy about, be it some weird formatting in ebooks or noticing some, minor copy edit errors that slipped through because we didn't have time to do another pass. And also going to 6 issues a year gives us more opportunity to seek out advertising between issues. It also gives us a chance to, in case there's something that goes wrong with an issue, we have more time to maneuver. And also, not having to do 12 a year, I think, will help us keep Lesley a lot more sane. And without Lesley, I couldn't do this, so I had to keep her happy and smiling.
All right. We've got a question that just came in a few minutes ago from Will. Will asks, do you think of branding for Apex? Do you look at Apex and stylistically try to curate certain groups of stories?
Oh, yeah. This is something Lesley and I talk about quite often. Maurice and I also have conversations about this. We definitely want you to be able to read a story and say, okay, that's the kind of thing that we would only see in Apex or some other publication that might take chances. I wouldn't call it an edict, but one of my directives as editor-in-chief is to make sure that we publish stuff that has a certain voice, certain point of view, deals with things in a thematic area in a unique way that other publications might be afraid of doing.
I think that if you go back and read back issues of the magazine, it really becomes clear what I mean, because it's hard to put into words like what it is that makes an Apex story. But when you read it, you know it. And I think that if you go back, and especially for writers who are trying to get into the magazine, go back and read a few issues and you'll start to notice, you'll be like, there is this certain something that all of these stories, even though the stories may be different, seem to have that hold them together, that make them what drew them, drew us to them. And I think that comes with, especially, I'm glad, like I said, several of our slush readers came back, and I'm glad because those are readers who have been reading the magazine for a long time. They were reading for the magazine and reading the issues that we published. So they already have that sense of what it is that's going to get through and really is going to make it to the top of the pile.
I think this next question that just came in is one of my favorite kinds of questions for this type of panel. So I love that Lana asked, any advice for someone wanting to start a science fiction and fantasy magazine? That is truly my favorite question.
Do you see the glassy stares that Jason and I both have? We're like,
Oh boy. Any advice?
I would say it has to be your passion. I mean, I know I'm not the one that started Apex by any means, but I would say for any project such as this or any kind of magazine, especially short fiction, you have to really be passionate about it, because it's hard work and it's going to cost you money and it's going to be a lot of long hours and sweat and tears. But if it's something that you truly are passionate about and where you feel that there's a gap to be filled, then go for it. And, naysayers be damned, have fun with it and start small and let it grow on its own. And don't try and build it too big, too fast. Let it grow kind of naturally, but start small. Start with something quarterly, or start even with just something annually, and do something, a really nice dedicated once a year annual magazine, or, and just start that way. But if you really want to do it, I say go for it and have fun doing it.
I like the way you think, Shana.
I could speak for hours on this subject. Couple that come to mind, I think all nation genre, zine, publisher, editor types should follow are: one, you need to have a thick skin, because you just by the nature of genre and the people who read it, you are going to upset folks sometimes, and you have to be willing to admit when you're wrong. You also have to know when to stand by your guns. You need to be able to communicate with the people who are backing you. By that I mean, if something goes wrong, like, so I had to sell my house because I'm going bankrupt. What am I going to do? I owe all these authors this much money. Going into hiding and not talking is the fastest way to get you in the doghouse. Like I was saying, by nature, you're going to upset people, but also the great thing about genre is it's a community, and people are very understanding, and they know that shit happens, and they'll give you a chance if you can build a trust with them, if you earn their trust. So also treat your writers right. Always offer to pay them at whatever you can. Don't and be upfront as to why. You may only be offering $50 a story for like a 7,000 word piece. And passion, yes. And being able to continue to make your point while your cat crawls on the back of your chair.
And passion is the secret sauce.
Yes.
All
Passion,
right.
trust, communication.
I like it. Lana, I hope that was helpful. Let's see. Next one is, we are pretty close to fully funding the whole year of 2021. And after that, there is a run for special issues. What information can you give us about the special issues stretch goals?
I have not asked Dr. Amy Sturgis yet about doing the Indigenous Fantasists issue again. I didn't kind of want to jump my guns because honestly, I didn't think we would be in a situation where it might be funded. That's the great thing about this Kickstarter. It's went so well. So if we do reach that point, I do plan on asking Dr. Sturgis to edit it again and pretty much be hands off, let her handle all that. I think one of the other ones was another international SF issue. I will probably ask, honestly, I don't want to tip my hand on that one. I have a handful of people who intrigue me as possible editors for this.
Yes.
So
I had some ideas I wanted to float by you when we get to that point too. So
yeah, it's going to be some fun discussions.
Right.
That's
sounds like we really need to hit those stretch goals.
Yeah, I'd love to. Because for me, I geek out over things like this, like, let's see what this person can do with this kind of, budget and directive. So far, our special issues have done, they've been incredible. Sometimes, I've picked ringers for editors, guest editors like Sheree Thomas. Other times, I kind of threw caution to the wind and let Maurice guest edit an issue here.
Twice you've let me.
Yeah. But so far, I've loved everything that has come out through the special issues, and I think you could definitely argue that they are some of our strongest publications.
Do you see crowdfunding as a viable way to fund future years of Apex Magazine?
Right now, my plan is this the only Kickstarter that I will run for the magazine? I had promised myself ages ago that I would not do a Kickstarter to fund the magazine, but then I got seriously ill, went through 6 months of poor health, and when I came out from the other side of that, I realized, okay, every now and then it's not bad to ask for help. So in this case, since Apex Magazine is so important to me, and the people that are involved with it are very important to me, I wanted to give it every chance of coming back to its pre-hiatus levels of quality and production. So I decided to do a Kickstarter. But I fully hope that we're able to live on the subscriber model going forward after this Kickstarter.
And we've got a question that just came in. I think this may be our last question of the evening. It's from Renan, who asks, how do you view writers from outside English-speaking countries who are writing in English or translating works submitting to Apex?
I get this in my email a lot, and I will say how I always reply to them. We want your stories, submit them. We encourage authors from outside of English-speaking countries to submit. Like, we want more than what is just right here in the U.S. We want stories from outside of the U.S. So yeah, please send them. Don't let that hold you back. Like I said, I get that question quite a bit in my email, and I just want to blast it on Twitter. Please send them. So yeah, go ahead.
Excellent.
Yeah, I'd like to add that if your story was published, let's say you're a Portuguese writer and it was published first and only in Portuguese, then First English World rights are still available and you can still sell it to us. Yeah, I get this question probably 3 or 4 times a week. Second, I think a lot of non-native English-speaking writers in other countries are very nervous about their translations, at least in my discussions with them via email. And, well, I hate the saying, but it is what it is. So get it translated as well as you can, and it is dependent upon the editors, like our slush team, Lesley, myself, to be able to see what the author is going for and whether it's something that we can polish up a little bit with help with the translator and the author. This is something we've actually done several times to very good success. So don't be too worried about the level of your translation. Sure, it needs to be, pretty good, but, we're flexible because we really do like publishing works from non-English speaking countries.
All right, I'll close out our Q&A with a question for the entire panel. I would love it if each of you could tell me your favorite thing about being involved with the Apex Magazine editorial team.
Yes, let's hear it. Sizemore, baby, the first word coming out everyone's mouth. No,
I don't think it is for me though, because I've always had sort of a weird relationship with Apex over the years in sort of an undefined role. But every time it keeps coming back to an excuse for me to hang out and sort of play with Jason and on a more. Oh, that sounded weird out loud. Hang on. But it's a great excuse for me to work with an old dear friend. I mean, because I look at it this way. Look, me and Apex have sort of come up together, in all honesty. I think I've been in every version of the magazine from the print zine on. And so in a lot of ways, so I've seen Apex as a critical support in my career. I've seen me, in ways giving back to Apex this whole time. And so me working formally as an editor just sort of formalizes the relationship I think I've always had with Apex, because don't think I haven't been whispering in Jason's ear this whole time anyway. So there's always that. So for me, my favorite thing has always been an excuse to work with my friend Jason. Of course, that might be the wine talking. I don't know.
I think one of my favorite parts is searching for cover art and working with artists from all over the globe. Because, there was one day I remember, and I just got so tickled because it hit me that I'm emailing back and forth with several different artists at that time, because I was trying to get several months issues worth of arts scheduled. And nobody was like anywhere near me in the same country, in the same time zone. And it was just really cool to be able to know that art and stories can bring everyone together. And I think that's one of my favorite parts. That and sending Jason text at 5:30 in the morning.
Knowing I won't see them for like 4 hours.
Yeah, I know. But that just means I can keep sending him. Did you read it yet? Did you read that story yet?
How about you, Shana?
I mean, I know I'm still relatively new and I haven't technically worked on, anything Apex Editorial, but I'll never forget I've met everyone on this stream at Confusion, or one of the many Confusions that, we've all attended. And so it really feels like working with family, and being a part of a family to share not just our stories, but other stories, and bring stories into the world, and bring, different viewpoints, and bring different conversations to light. And it's an exciting thing to be a part of, and it just makes me happy. That's my cheesy answer for you, but that's me in a nutshell.
I thought that was a great answer.
Yeah.
How about you, Jason?
I love interacting with our fan base and our readers. To me, one of the most fun aspects is running our Twitter feed, Apex Mag, because then I get to see all the nice tweets that were mentioned in, and I get to conversate with others who have read the stories. It's a wonderful thing. And also, I love that with the editorial team, from our intern, Haley, all the way up to, my number 2, Lesley there. We're all very much like a family. We're all really close friends. It's just fun. And the fact that we are producing and publishing fantastic fiction from awesome people and awesome writers just compounds how great it is.
All right, I'll do one more round around our panel. If anybody has any closing thoughts, or you want to mention your social media, or anything else you'd like our viewers to know.
Please back the Kickstarter. We are currently at, I just had it up, $21,253. If we hit 30,000, then that locks in not only just the whole year of Apex, but then we get the special additional issues. And I really, really, really want the special extra issues. So please give us your money.
Let's see. Oh, speaking of give us your money, my book Usual Suspects comes out as a paperback this week, so there's that.
There, see, and give Maurice some of your money.
So give Maurice your money.
Right, there we go.
Or you could buy his novel, Pimp My Airship.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But that also gives Maurice his money just through Apex.
Right, let me be a responsible Apex author.
Yeah.
Lesley, how about you?
Apparently, I'm supposed to tell you to give Jason and Maurice your money. So I guess we'll close with that.
Perfect.
All right. Are you going to add a back our Kickstarter, Jason?
Yes. Go to apex-magazine.com. Notice how beautiful the new website looks. Go to the blog. There's a post there. Actually, it's splattered all over the website. Links to the Kickstarter. We don't want to make Shana unhappy and not do these special issues. So let's hit that 30K. Follow us on Twitter, Apex Mag. And by Usual Suspects, not the movie. Maurice's young adult, middle grade novel that's in paperback.
There we go.
And before we sign off, a huge thank you to the Apex intern, Haley, who's been working our back channels tonight and helping me out a ton. And
Thank you, Haley.
Thank you, Haley. And thank you so much to all of our viewers. Thank you so much to everybody who tweeted us and emailed us and chatted us questions. This was a wonderful evening, and I hope we get to do it again soon. Thanks, everybody.
Right, thanks.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.